perusal of the information. Did you find anything that you might be able to use? Yes, no, maybe. Yes? Okay, good. Great. Normally I would ask if anyone would like to share an activity that they liked and why they liked it and how they might use it in their class. Would anyone like to do that? Yes, please.
I used to teach, for example, teenagers, and I liked the game with modal verbs because it's very good for kinesthetic children who likes to move.
Okay, which one was that? Which?
I think it's
what
the
page?
second.
Do you remember what it's called?
The Great Model Race.
Oh, the Great Model Race. Okay. I heard someone say yes, so I think that's a good thing, right? Okay. Was there anything to add to that? Sorry, I might have interrupted you.
No, I just wanted to say that I think it's a good game for teenagers who like to move, and they also can practice some geography while learning modal verbs. So it's sort of developing game, in my opinion.
Okay, great. Anybody else have a game that they liked? Yeah, what was your game? Oh, also the Great Model Race. Okay. Anyone else? No?
I'd like to win this race.
Okay, so for those of you who didn't already figure this out or didn't have access to this book, all of these activities come from this book, Shenanigans. There is another book as well that I have used, and these are the references. So Teaching and Learning Grammar by Harmer in 1995, long time ago. Some of you were probably born then. This was where I got some of the original stuff that we talked about at the beginning. And then Shenanigans, or most of the activities, came from this book. As you can see here, that they are photocopiable. The ones that I photocopied are for education purposes, and you can do the same if you would like. And they have 49 different interactive activities and games. You can check them out. So those of you who just came, you were filling out a form, yeah? Those of you who it was your first time. So this form allows you to check out books like this to supplement your classes with hopefully exciting games and activities for your students to use. We have a list of, well, we have loads and loads of books over here on methodology. We also have linguistics specific books. And then here, behind the board, which you can't really see, we have two sections of shelves of activities. Different activities for speaking, listening, anything you can think of, reading, writing, all of the 4 skills, etc. And then further down we have a lot of books for young learners. Then here we have the teen section. And in the back we have very young learners with amazing, like really big picture books that you could read with them at the front of the class. I mean, the books are massive. They're like this big. So I just wanted to mention these resources for you. For an interesting discussion, actually, Victor, this is for you. If you wanted to look in TESOL International Journal, in 2006, volume number 1, Ellie Hinkle, who's one of my favorite researchers because she's crazy smart and writes brilliantly. So she wrote an article whose title I forgot, but it is a discussion on the 4 skills, and I found it for free in PDF file today, and it talks a lot about how do we teach the 4 skills, including where does grammar come into that. So we started originally with having a bottom-up approach. A bottom-up approach is how all the little pieces fit together, right? We could think of that as sort of like a grammar translation. How do we get from from this sentence to this sentence, to a top-down approach where it's more of a meaning focus. And so now we have a more integrated approach, which is that we need both top down and bottom up, because that we have such a variety of learners who learn in different ways that we need to accommodate all of the learning styles. And she discusses it a little bit in detail in this particular journal article, which I wanted to suggest if you have time to read, you can find it. Again, it's in TESOL International Journal. You can go to TESOL International website and access the journal through that website. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to just share with you, for those of you, there's only two, but if anyone else has a child at home or may have a child in the future, one other game that works for very young learners as well as secondary school is Shoebox English. And what's nice about the way that this is set up is that you go through a grammatical approach. So you start with just vocabulary, and you go through, and this follows the stages of growth in education that a child follows. So psychological developmental stages that they themselves go through. So we have vocabulary development, we have request forms, so how to request different things, use of the word and, colors, numbers and plural forms, adjectives, command forms, and prepositions of place, is, are, it, they, have, has, and comparisons, verb tense practice, verb tense comparisons, modals, phonics, sight reading, memory development, sensory development, categories, listening comprehension, creative sentences, and then creative storytelling. And all you need is a shoebox and stuff. This stuff could even be like pictures of things. Just as long as it stimulates their thinking or stimulates their mind. You could do a version of this, as I said, for secondary, even sometimes adults. Depends on your students. So I have copies of these. If you feel like you might want one, we can make you a copy. I have a very limited number of copies. The grammar games that you just used, remember you can just take the book out, so you don't necessarily need to have the copy itself. We also should have it on this computer, right? Because I put all of this on PDF as well, so if you have a memory stick, you can either today after this workshop or later come in and everything is on this computer. We can help you to find it. So if you wanted the like big chunk of information, this would be how you would get it. Borrow the book or get it from the computer, okay? Questions, comments, or concerns? No? Okay, so we have just 5 minutes left, and I wanted to introduce a few things. You can see I have piles of stuff everywhere. So the first thing I wanted to do is a little celebration of snow, because I'm waiting desperately. I was so excited yesterday. And I was reading, actually, yesterday reminded me of this book that I was reading. It's called A Long Way Gone, Memoirs of a Boy Soldier. So this young man grew up in Sierra Leone, and at the age of 12, his village was attacked, and his people were slaughtered. And he found himself fighting for the army against the rebel army. So he was a child soldier. But all of this, after he went through recovery, all of this led to him coming to a UN summit in New York. And when he landed, there was the first snowfall. And I thought that coming from a place where snow is common, you might appreciate his description of snow. So I'm just going to read it to you out loud. And also, I think that there are some jokes about stereotypes that we have about different countries, and he has a really funny one about New York. I love what he says about how scared he is to go to New York. So I wanted to read this because of that as well. Okay, my conception of New York City came from rap music. I envisioned it as a place where people shot each other on the street and got away with it. No one walked on the streets. Rather, people drove in their sports cars, looking for nightclubs and for violence. I really wasn't looking forward to being somewhere this crazy. I had had enough of that back home. It was dark when the plane landed at John F. Kennedy International Airport. It was 4:30 p.m. I asked Dr. Tamba why it was so dark so early in this country. Because it's winter, he said. Oh, I nodded. But the early darkness still didn't make sense to me. I knew the word winter from Shakespeare's texts, and I thought I should look up its meaning again. Dr. Tamba took our passports and did all the talking at immigration. We got our bags and headed towards the sliding doors. Maybe we shouldn't venture out in the streets like that, I thought, but Dr. Tamba was already outside. When Ba and I stepped through the sliding doors, we were greeted by an extremely cold wind. I felt my skin tighten. I couldn't feel my face, and it seemed my ears had fallen off. My fingers hurt and my teeth chattered. The wind penetrated through the summer pants and t-shirt I was wearing, and it felt as though I wasn't wearing anything. I was shivering as I ran back into the terminal. I had never in my life felt this cold. How could anyone survive in this country, I thought, rubbing my hands together and jumping around to generate some heat. Ba stood outside with Dr. Tamba, his hands wrapped around himself and shaking uncontrollably. For some reason, Dr. Tamba had a jacket, but Ba and I didn't. I waited in the terminal while Dr. Tamba hailed a taxi, then ran outside and jumped in, quickly closing the door behind me. There were little white things falling out of the sky, and they seemed to be accumulating on the ground. What is this white stuff falling from the sky? I thought to myself. Dr. Tamba told the driver our destination, reading it off a piece of paper he held in his hand. Is this your first time in the city, and are you guys enjoying the beautiful snowfall? The taxi driver asked. Yes, it is our first time in the city, Dr. Tamba replied, and busied himself putting away our documents. I had never heard of the word snow before. It is not exactly something we discuss in Sierra Leone, but I had seen movies about Christmas, and this fluffy white stuff was in those movies. It must be Christmas here every day, I thought. So that was his introduction to snow. So I really liked that introduction to snow. So, before you go, this is the book. So book club is next Monday at 5 p.m. for those of you who haven't signed up yet. It's basically where we meet together in a group and we talk about different books. We have a different book every month. This book is for this month, and it is called Bossy Pants, and it's written by Tina Fey, who is a ridiculously famous comedian in the U.S., and she's ridiculously awesome as well. So her humor isn't for everyone, but it would give you an idea of someone who has written a hit television series called 30 Rock, her way of thinking and her way of processing the world. I actually did not expect to enjoy this book because I don't always appreciate American humor, but I read it and I loved it. And I was surprised. So we have one copy of this left to check out. So if you're interested and think you can read it, or even part of it before next Monday, you're welcome to. We have another edition by my friends Elizabeth and Joe Crinnock. They left us with this book called State of Wonder. This is another wonderful book that will be added to the collection by the end of this week. It's already been donated. and it is about a woman from Minnesota who runs off on a quest to find her colleague, because her colleague has disappeared with a scientific researcher in the Amazon jungle. So it's about her adventures trying to find her colleague, who is assumed to be dead. Everyone thinks that this person is dead, and what happened to him, how he died. Because the only telegram they got was, he is dead, and he has been buried. So there were so many questions they had, and it's an interesting look also at some of the scientific research revolving or relating to malaria. That's the focus of the research of this book. And then finally, I know you probably want to leave, but I was in Thailand for Christmas, and I happened across this book separately from being here, and I absolutely loved it. Earlier this year, we had read the story Having Our Say by two centenarians. What's a centenarian?
Someone who's 100 years old?
Someone who is over 100 years old. So these two were, I think it was 102 and 104 when they wrote this book, and it's an absolutely breathtaking look at history, U.S. history of a certain era, and it's very well done. And within this context, I was also thinking of Sidney Poitier, because he is the first black actor, I'm going to read the back, to win the Academy Award for Best Actor for his outstanding performance in Lilies of the Field in 1963. In the 1960s, most of the U.S. wasn't even desegregated. So the fact that he won an Academy Award, that's big stuff. His landmark films include The Defiant Ones, Patch of Blue, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and To Sir with Love. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was a revolutionary film at the time because it showed an interracial couple. So it was about a prominent young white girl and her prominent young black boyfriend, and she brought him home to dinner. So you can imagine the kinds of things that occur at that dinner. Also starring in the movie, many of you may know the name Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. So it's an all-star cast and very interesting. But this book itself is about how, in the face of racism and in the face of so many people telling him he was not good enough, he was not strong enough because of the color of his skin, he still fought for himself. And he still fought for his own self-knowledge, and he still made choices that were with integrity to who he was as a person. So, for example, he chose movies whose character he liked. He chose strong characters to represent. And so this is just the story of his struggle, and it's very, very interesting. Okay, and I think that was all I wanted to share with you. State of Wonder, Measure of Man, and February's book, Happiness Project. And I know that some people have found this online, but we have one copy left of the Happiness Project, and you're welcome to join us if you don't have time to read Bossy Pants, which is a fast read actually. You're welcome to join us in February for the Happiness Project. Okay, thank you for your time and for your attention, and Natalia would like to say something really quickly before we end.
Could you please advertise our Friday discussion club? Just in 2 words.
Is it this Friday? No.
Next Friday.
Next Friday. Oh, so we have a discussion club that I lead with, actually Igor leads it. I don't lead it, I just go, good. But it's called Development for Success, and it's aimed at kind of giving ideas for how to develop yourself. So it's personal development. We talk about a lot of different research and or ideas about self-development. We've gone through goal setting and setting like 10-year plans, things of that sort. I know that some of you have been there, and I'd like to invite you all to come. It takes place at 4:30 30 on not this Friday, but the next Friday. And that is the 24th. And the topic is awakening something. What is, do you know, awakening potential, awakening, awakening potential. It will be more interesting than I just explained, but we always have some good discussions. Okay, so you're welcome to come. So, yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you
Dear friends, those of you who are here for the first time and haven't put your names in our registration form, could you please do it for us if you have time? If no, thank you very much for coming. It was a great pleasure to see all of you here, and we hope to see you again sometime. Have a nice evening. Enjoy this wonderful winter
What is it?
evening.
I don't know. What is it? Ingrid. Oh, interesting. What? Jorgen. How interesting. Ivan is Jorgen. Oh, Ivan is what? Yeah, that is. I'm probably not Yeah, no, it's good. It's Yes, thank you. I cannot make any promises, but thank you for inviting me. Yeah.
Если уже дорогу вы
Yeah,
знаете,
thanks for
приходите,
coming.
пожалуйста.
So it's a pleasure to meet you.
А вы преподаете?
Yes. Yeah.
Прекрасно. Вы передадите своим студентам, что вообще прекрасно.
It means the same thing. It just basically what it's saying is attitudes in America are you could argue successfully that this is true. Argue like when used in that context. It's like an agreement. Like you could argue to support this idea. When you say argue, the statement was arguably the best statement of the context. Yeah, more clear. Wow, you got it like that when I explained it that way. Yeah, it's true. It's right.
И тоже все, в принципе, посвящено преподавания, методики работы со студентами. Сегодня вот тоже, в принципе, была грамматика,
Oh, I'll wait.
люди и как трудовые формы. Приходите, пожалуйста, будем рады. Для переводчиков у нас есть
Читальный зал, домой не можно для того, чтобы